The Court of Saul by Louis Ginzberg. The most important figure at the Court of Saul was his cousin Abner, the son of the witch of Endor. 83, he was a giant of extraordinary size. A wall measuring 6 ells in thickness could be moved more easily than one of Abner's feet. 84, David once chanced to get between the feet of Abner as he lay asleep, and he was almost crushed to death, when fortunately Abner moved them, and David made his escape. 85, conscious of his vast strength, he once cried out, "If only I could seize the earth at some point, I should be able to shake it." Even in the hour of death, wounded mortally by Joab, he grasped his murderer like a worsted ball. He was about to kill him, but the people crowded round them and said to Abner, "If thou killest Joab, we shall be orphaned, and our wives and children will be prey to the Philistines." Abner replied, "What can I do? He was about to extinguish my light." The people consoled him, "Commit thy cause to the true judge." Abner thereupon loosed his hold upon Joab, who remained unharmed, while Abner fell dead instantly. God had decided against him. 86, the reason was that Joab was in a measure justified in seeking to avenge the death of his brother Asahel. Asahel, the supernaturally swift runner, 87, so swift that he ran through a field without snapping the ears of wheat, 88, had been the attacking party. He had sought to take Abner's life, and Abner contended that in killing Asahel he had but acted in self-defense. Before inflicting the fatal wound, Joab held a formal court of justice over Abner. He asked, "Why didst thou no render Asahel harmless by wounding him rather than kill him?" Abner replied that he could not have done it. "What," said Joab, incredulous, "if thou wast able to strike him under the 5th rib, dost thou mean to say thou couldst not have made him innocuous by a wound, and saved him alive?" 89. Although Abner was a saint, 90, even a lion in the law, 91, he perpetrated many a deed that made his violent death appear just. It was in his favor that he had refused to obey Saul's command to do away with the priests of Nob. 92, yet a man of his stamp should not have rested content with passive resistance. He should have interposed actively, and kept Saul from executing his blood design. And granted that Abner could not have influenced the king's mind in this matter. 93, at all events, he is censurable for having frustrated a reconciliation between Saul and David. When David, holding in his hand the corner of the king's mantle which he had cut off, sought to convince Saul of his innocence, it was Abner who turned the king against the suppliant fugitive. "Concern not thyself about it," he said to Saul. "David found the rag on a thorn bush in which thou didst catch the skirt of thy mantle as thou didst pass it." 94 On the other hand, no blame attaches to Abner for having espoused the cause of Saul's son against David for 2 years and a half. He knew that God had designated David for the royal office, but according to an old tradition, God had promised 2 kings to the tribe of Benjamin, and Abner considered it his duty to transmit his father's honor to the son of Saul the Benjamite. 95. Another figure of importance during Saul's reign, but a man of radically different character, was Doeg. Doeg, the friend of Saul from the days of his youth, 96, died when he was 34 years old. 97, yet at that early age he had been president of the Sanhedrin and the greatest scholar of his time. He was called Edomi, which means, not Edomite, but he who causes the blush of shame, because by his keen mind and his learning he put to shame all who entered into argument with him. 98, but his scholarship lay only on his lips, his heart was not concerned in it, and his one aim was to elicit admiration. Doeg's most grievous transgression, however, was his informing against the priests of Nob, whom he accused of high treason and executed as traitors. For all his iniquitous deeds, he pressed the law into his service, and derived justification of his conduct from it. Abimelech, the high priest at Nob, admitted that he had consulted the Urim and Thummim for David. This served Doeg as the basis for the charge of treason, and he stated it as an unalterable halakha that the Urim and Thummim may be consulted only for a king. In vain Abner and Amasa, and all the other members of the Sanhedrin demonstrated that the Urim and Thummim may be consulted for any on whose undertaking concerns the general welfare. Doeg would not yield, and as no one could be found to execute the judgment, he himself officiated as hangman. 104. When the motive of revenge actuated him, he held cheap alike the life and honor of his fellow man. He succeeded in convincing Saul that David's marriage with the king's daughter Michal had lost its validity from the moment David was declared a rebel. As such, he said, David was as good as dead, since a rebel was outlawed. Hence his wife was no longer bound to him. 105. Doeg's punishment accorded with his misdeeds. He who had made impious use of his knowledge of the law, completely forgot the law, and even his disciples rose up against him and drove him from the house of study. In the end, he died a leper. Dreadful as this death was, it was not accounted an atonement for his sins. One angel burned his soul, and another scattered his ashes in all the house of study and prayer. 106. The son of Doeg was Saul's armor-bearer, who was killed by David for daring to slay the king even though he longed for death. 107. Along with Abner and Doeg, Jonathan distinguished himself in the reign of his father. His military capacity was joined to deep scholarship. To the latter, he owed his position as Ob-Bet-Din. 108. Nevertheless, he was one of the most modest men known in history. 109. Abinadab was another one of Saul's sons who was worthy of his father, wherefore he was sometimes called Ishvi. 110. As for Saul's grandson Mephibosheth, he, too, was reputed a great man. David himself did not scorn to sit at his feet, and he revered Mephibosheth as his teacher.